Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Hafer with the AMAC Foundation, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our seminar today on elder fraud, a very important topic, and we'll be getting into some of the real details on that, including what the frauds are and how to protect yourself and that sort of thing. I want to apologize, first of all, for the change in venue here. We had originally planned to have this as a live seminar, live streamed, an in-person seminar that is live streamed across our network. Our offices here in North Central Florida have been kind of ravaged by the COVID situation, and so we had to back off from that, and we reverted to the Zoom platform. So I'm just hoping that all of you can still join us and benefit from the seminar. I'd like to take a few minutes and explain who AMAC is. And I'll do that with a couple of very quick slides. I won't take a whole lot of time on this. For those of you that are not aware, AMAC is the Association of Mature American Citizens. And basically, I got to move some stuff around on my slide here. Okay, AMAC is a member benefits organization supporting all Americans, especially those 50 plus in age. We are, as that says, a senior benefit organization. AMAC is centered on American values, freedom of the individual, free speech, exercise of religion, equality of opportunities, sanctity of life, rule of law, and love of family. That's kind of a broad brush look at AMAC's basically core values. AMAC actually advocates through its AMAC Action subsidiary, advocates for issues that are important to AMAC's 2 million plus members. It's about 2.4 million at this point and growing rapidly. And AMAC Action works extensively on Capitol Hill, as well as in state capitals and at the local government level, basically with a purpose to ensure that AMAC members' voices are heard through grassroots activism. Everything AMAC does is member driven, I should say. Member viewpoints are conveyed to the political people in Washington to make sure that that what's important to seniors is getting attention in Washington. That's basically the AMAC purpose. And AMAC is a membership organization, as it says. It has member benefits, a full slate of member benefits. And I'll go back to the previous slide just to point one thing out. Oh, maybe I won't. But I'll show the slide at the end. It has the URLs for the websites that comprise the AMAC family. And you can look at those and get additional information about AMAC. I want to talk mostly about the foundation. That's the area that Eileen and I represent. And I didn't introduce Eileen. Eileen Cook is with us, and Deb Palmagina is with us as well. They are my colleagues here at the foundation. And our mission, very simply, is supporting and educating America's seniors. And I can extend that a little bit, saying to help protect and ensure the financial security, health, and social lives of current and future mature Americans. And that really is why we're doing this seminar today, to help protect and ensure financial security and basically secure all kinds of security for the mature Americans. Americans are under attack, seniors are under attack through elder fraud and things like that. So that's why this subject is very important to us. The second part of that statement on the screen right now is our purpose in the foundation is to help Americans navigate the bewildering array of decisions they need to make. And not only decisions about elder fraud situations and all that, but we advocate for understanding Social Security and Medicare. So that's basically our mission at the foundation. How do we carry that mission out? Well, we conduct seminars on topics that are important to seniors. We basically offer an average of 2 to 3 seminars each month on important topics to seniors. Things like elder care, certainly. New to Medicare is another one of our seminars that we offer for people that are aging into the program and aren't sure how to proceed. And we do a lot of other topics that are important to seniors. We produce publications on matters that are important to seniors. And we operate some very content-filled websites on Social Security and Medicare. SocialSecurityReport.org is one of those, and MedicareReport.org is another. We update those websites 5 days a week with breaking news about those areas. And I would encourage you to take a look at both those websites. They're really rich in information. Probably the flagship program of the foundation itself is our accredited Social Security Advisory Program. We presently have on staff at the foundation 7 accredited advisors with a sole mission of handling questions from people that are aging into Social Security or just have questions about Social Security and are not sure what to do. There really isn't any good place for people to go to get credible information about Social Security, how it operates, how it affects their individual situations. And basically, we handle those questions. And it's an active area. We handle between 500 and 600 inquiries every month on average. And so far, since we started the program back in 2016, we handled about 18,000 inquiries at this point. Again, it's people that are confused about Social Security, just aren't sure what decision is best for their situation. We offer those folks a counseling session. This is all free of charge. We don't charge for anything that we do. We are a public benefit corporation, and we're funded by contributions from the public. So there is no charge for anything we do. But we're very proud of the Social Security Advisory Program that we operate. And also, I would point out, in handling the Social Security questions, we do get quite a few that are from people that have been targeted by the Social Security fraud, which we'll talk about as we get into the details of this program. We get a lot of calls from people that tell us, I just got a call from somebody identifying themselves as a Social Security Administration person. They're going to lock my account and that kind of thing. So we do get a lot of calls about that. So we know that's a very active fraud area. Today's topic, as I mentioned at the outset, is the growing problem of elder fraud. We're going to focus on explaining and defining the problem. We're going to talk about illustrating the problem's impact on American seniors. And we're going to provide some guidance on what to do if you are victimized, if you feel that you have been targeted or you're in the midst of dealing with what's a fraud situation. We'll provide some guidance on what to do about that. As I mentioned, I would show this slide again. These are the 3 primary entities in the growing AMAC family, and you can see on the screen their URLs. If you want to take a look at their websites, they are packed with information about what AMAC does and how we serve the public. So I would ask you to take a look at those. Now, for today's session, we are blessed with 3 extremely talented presenters: Maurice Patterson from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Robert Folas from the Florida Attorney General's Office, and Breanne Peppers from the Citizens First Bank here locally where we are in the Lady Lake Villages area of Florida. Maurice is going to present his piece first, and then we'll move through the other 2. So with that, I'd like to first of all introduce Maurice. Maurice Patterson Maurice Patterson represents the Florida Fusion Center housed in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's headquarters building in Tallahassee, Florida. He currently serves as the cybersecurity analyst responsible for handling FDLE's Secure Florida initiative, where he works with Florida citizens, businesses, academia, law enforcement, and government entities in coordination of cybersecurity issues. Very talented individual, and I'm going to turn it over to Maurice right now and ask him to share his screen. I'm going to stop sharing mine, and Maurice, you can take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Jerry. Give me 1 second and I'll share my screen with everyone. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep. Good to go.
Great. Okay. So thank you again, Jerry. Once again, thanks to the AMAC Foundation for having me today. My name is Maurice Patterson. As Jerry said, I'm a cybersecurity analyst with the Secure Florida Initiative with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Really glad to be able to participate in this event today. So we live in a world that continues to grow more and more interconnected each day, thanks to technology. So we have to remain aware of the risks that are out there. So criminal actors are constantly seeking new ways to target people online for money or their personal information. So today we'll go over some things that everyone needs to be aware of to protect yourself offline and online. Okay, so to understand the basis for a number of online threats, we have to first look at social engineering. So social engineering is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into giving up sensitive information, which is then used for fraudulent purposes. So often this information that cyber criminals are seeking is information that we're not usually willing to give up easily. So they've had to come up with social engineering schemes, ways to trick us into giving out that information so they can commit a number of different crimes, including fraud and identity theft. So since we're unlikely to give up this information, as I said, cyber criminals will be very creative in what they're trying to do to get us to give that information up. They might pretend to be a bank representative, government representative, police officer, basically anyone that they have to get you to give up that info. And this can happen online, over the phone, or even in person. So the most common social engineering schemes are normally seen in phishing emails. And phishing emails are scam emails, basically, to attempt to get you to trick people or trick you into giving up your information, sensitive information. So usually someone will send you an email pretending to be someone they're not. As I said, your bank, a doctor, maybe a Netflix representative, some other type of representative from another company. The email will often contain links or attachments that it asks you to open. But if you open one of these emails and click on the link, it could expose your computer or phone to malware or malicious software. So if you get one of these emails, please don't click on anything or open anything. And it's also important to note that criminals may also try to conduct this same activity through text messages, which is called smishing. So I wanted to go over a phishing email example, and I won't get too in depth here. I'll just point out some things that you can look at to see if you can find any indicators that this is a phishing email, basically. So the first thing we want to look at, and what we normally look at, is the subject line. This normally determines if we open an email. So this email is someone pretending to be from Amazon. And the subject line says alert message from Amazon.com. So if you know about Amazon, it's a very popular online retailer. A lot of people around the world use it to buy and sell goods. You normally won't get emails like this from Amazon. If you do have an Amazon account, you probably know that. But the subject is always going to have some kind of message that is vaguely threatening or urgent, basically something to get you to open that email up immediately. So that's the subject line. Next, you want to look at the sender. So if you look at this example, if you look at the domain or the part after the @ sign in the email address, it doesn't say Amazon.com, it says Maison.com. So that's an indicator that you know this is probably a very suspicious email. Sometimes cyber criminals will use email addresses that have a domain that's one letter off from a legitimate company. So like in this case, missing the A in Amazon. Next part we can start to look at is some of the actual text. So something you want to look for is grammar and spelling errors. But I will say it's important to keep in mind that cyber criminals are getting better about checking their grammar and using spell check. So this is not a guarantee that you can use to determine this is a phishing email, but it's something you can take into consideration. And keep in mind that legitimate companies like Amazon, will actually have their emails proofread and vetted thoroughly. So you won't see that many spelling or grammatical errors. So in this second paragraph, you actually see first two sentences aren't really complete sentences. They're missing a word. So for example, in the first sentence, towards the end of the sentence, it says, we are requiring to open investigation into this matter. So it's, it's missing a letter or a word, I'm sorry. So we were requiring to open a investigation would have been more complete there. So that's another thing you can keep in mind. Last thing I'll bring up is links. As I said, you don't want to click on any links. Cyber criminals are going to make you think you can do this simple task, such as clicking on this link and going to a website and filling in your information, and it's resolved that way. But really what they're trying to do is steal your information, because once you click on a link, you go to a fake website, enter your information, it's then transmitted to the person that actually sent that phishing email. So you don't want to click on those links. Once again, I can't reiterate that anymore. One trick you can use is to hover over the link, and it'll actually show you the actual link you're going to. So you see in this case, this website's not going to Amazon.com. So those are some things you can look for when you look at phishing emails. Here's a couple of more phishing examples. I won't go too in depth in here, so see, some of these are the subject lines: claiming a free prize, saying there's an issue with your credit card, whatever kind of account you may have, Facebook, Twitter, they may say your account's been compromised, and then saying you need to attend jury duty. That's the last example. So basically, cyber criminals will use any way they can to try to get you to give up that information. And also sometimes they're trying to basically get money from you or funds somehow. So always be wary of your emails. Make sure you read those subject lines. Make sure you look for those indicators that I mentioned earlier. All right. So here's some more information about how to protect yourself. So we've talked about why it's not a good idea to click on links in emails, and that's because the link might take you to a site that steals your username, your passwords, or it could infect your computer with malware. Malware is malicious software, and that refers to viruses, Trojans, ransomware, all the bad stuff you don't want infecting your computer, basically. So always be cautious. And if you keep getting strange emails from the same email address, you can block that sender to prevent them from doing that. And then if you suspect there is an actual issue with your account, open up a separate browser, navigate to the main page of that website where you have an account in question, and log in that way and see if there actually is an issue with your account. So now I'm going to go through a couple of common scams. We've got some other panelists on here that can probably delve a little deeper into some of these, but I'll talk about a couple. So the first one I want to mention is the tech support scam. So this, unfortunately, is it's a growing trend in scams, but it's a scam that's been around for a long time. So what happens is someone will usually call you and say that they're with a big technology company and that there's some sort of problem with your device that they've detected. The scam can come in a few variations, depending on the goal of the scammer. So the scammer might tell you to go to a website and download some software, an application, or type some commands into your computer. And basically that can allow backdoor access into your computer where they can get in and steal information, basically, and have basically full access to your machine. Another variation is they might give you instructions to pull up something called Event Viewer on your computer, which basically is a log of all the activity on your computer and can be pretty indecipherable if you don't know what you're looking at. It logs everything from a program starting and running to updates being installed. The scammer will tell you all of that information is basically indicative of the fact that you have a virus on your machine and try to get you to basically do anything they ask you to do. And then there's an older variation of the scam that's popped up again, and scammers are basically using it to target people over the age of 60. So it involves the use of a fake pop-up ad on your browser that tells you your device has been compromised and you need to call a customer support number to fix it. They may even send you a message on social media or text messages. As I said, they'll do anything they can to get you to call that phone number. In either case, the scammer will probably tell you they can fix your problems, which usually don't exist, if you pay some amount of money, usually by a prepaid or gift card. So what I want to make sure everyone knows is that these scammers are really good at what they're doing in all of these scams. You may ask them questions and they will seem to always have a sensible answer because they practice and practice. They'll take the time they need to make sure their schemes are as good as they can be. They may try to say things that make you panic. For example, they may say, in this instance, you might risk losing everything on your computer, like your pictures, important documents, access to your bank accounts. I want to make sure that you don't do anything they ask you to do. If they call you, hang up. Don't call that phone number that you see on the pop-up. And even if they do call you, they may have a caller ID that's spoofed or made to look like it's coming from a legitimate company in your area code. So if you see that pop-up ad, do not call that phone number. And next, I'll talk a little bit about the romance scam. So it's very common for people nowadays to make friends and look for relationships on dating websites, dating apps, or social media. We have to remember that scammers use these sites as well to conduct romance scams, in which they groom victims with the intention to defraud them. So usually they'll set up fake profiles and will spend time texting or messaging the victim daily over weeks, months, in order to gain the victim's trust. These scammers will usually say they live far away, can't travel to see you because they don't have money because of the nature of their job. They might say they're in the military, an oil rig worker. They may even do small things to try to build intimacy, like sending you flowers or gifts. Once they feel that's been established, they'll ask for small things at first, like cashing checks or sending small amounts of money. Sometimes they may ask you to wire money or send it via gift cards because these methods can't be easily traced. Over time, they'll ask for more money. They may claim it's because their family member is sick and needs medical care and say they're having card trouble, sorry. And this can go on for years. So the best course of action is to never send money to anyone you've never met in person. If you think you're communicating with a scammer, stop communicating immediately. Next is government impersonation scams. I'll just briefly go over this. We have some other panelists that can talk about this. But these scams basically are conducted over the phone, and callers may claim to be from a number of different government agencies like the IRS, Social Security Administration, or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And they'll basically tell you something like your benefits are going to be canceled. In the IRS case, your taxes are owed. And if you don't pay this amount of money, you're going to go to jail or be in trouble, or your benefits are going to be canceled, something to that effect. Last common scam I'll go over is the grandparent scam. So in this case, you'll usually receive a call from someone claiming to be your grandchild or someone claiming to represent your grandchild, like a friend or lawyer. They'll usually say that they need money immediately for some type of emergency. They might say they were in a car accident, and need money for medical bills, or they got arrested and need bail money for money for a lawyer. Another common tactic is that they were traveling overseas and need money for a plane ticket home. The situations can all differ, but the main goal is to make you react quickly without thinking to help your loved one. But it's important to take a minute if you get one of these calls to think a few things through first. So resist the urge to act immediately. Think about what's being asked and if it makes sense. Verify the caller is who they claim to be. Ask some questions only your grandchild would know. Call a family member, ask them to verify what that person is saying. Sometimes scammers posing as your grandchild will ask you not to call their parents because they don't want to get in trouble. Call their parents anyway to verify the story. And lastly, don't send cash, gift cards, or money transfers. These methods of sending money are nearly untraceable. If you send it, there will virtually be no way to find the scammer. And then here's a list of some other scams. We've got the jury duty scam, lottery or sweepstakes scam, then the primary identification number scam or PIN scam. And then oftentimes people will target someone if they've already been a victim of a scam. That's called re-victimization. So, as I said, you want to prevent people from getting away with these scams. Remember, you can always say no. You can always hang up if someone calls you. If you're met with a situation that you think might be a scam or a social engineering scheme, take a minute to think a few things first. Think through a few things first. As I said, is that person who they are? If they say they are from your bank, hang up and call the bank directly. Do they work where they say they do? People can pretend to be anyone they want over the phone or online. Just think twice about who you're sharing information with. See if they really need to know the information they're asking for. Remember, you don't have to give that information. If you're ever uncertain about a call, hang up, call the official number for the agency or company, and see if there's really a need to know that information that way. And then some other things, as I said, never wire money to anyone. Avoid that at all costs. It's never a good idea to send money to people you don't know. Remember that government agencies will never require you to make payments via wire transfer with gift cards or prepaid cards. Make sure you check with your bank before spending checks from strangers or sending money to strangers. And then if you do become a victim somehow, please do not feel bad. Criminal actors are constantly trying to scam people, and it happens a lot. You can file complaints with the Federal Trade Commission. You can also report the situation to your local law enforcement. There are a number of things you can do to protect yourself and help yourself if you are a victim. So now I want to talk about some good privacy habits you want to have when you're online conducting yourself. So there are ways to make sure you conduct your safe web browsing, basically. Each browser has different options to protect you. The settings are usually contained under the options menu for each browser. So you'll see an icon similar to that in the second row here. You can change your settings to control what websites can save information about you, alter what information is shared with websites. You can also block pop-up ads and automatic downloads. Just a suggestion, before you begin using a web browser, take some time to familiarize yourself with those settings and set things up to reflect the level of security that you'd like. And then social media, being safe on social media. So before posting anything on social media, make sure your privacy settings are set the way you want them. You can control who sees your pictures, your posts, your videos, or who can even contact you. Usually these privacy features are altered in the settings menu, and they can change all the time. So try to familiarize yourself with them every so often because they change so often. Also remember, once something is posted on the internet, it's likely to be there forever. So if you don't want something on the internet, please don't post it. And then lastly, I want to talk about passwords. So making a good password. The reason for that is because passwords are the front door to all of your accounts and your private information online. So you want to make sure they're strong and secure and keep everybody else out of your accounts. So I suggest that passwords are at least 15 characters. This should be a combination of upper and lowercase letters, numbers and symbols. They should be unique for all important accounts. So like your bank accounts, social media, email, work, and they should be private, meaning you should keep them to yourself. So 15 characters, I know that seems like a lot, seems excessive, but it's really important to try and keep your passwords long, and this is why. In Microsoft storing databases, any password under 15 characters is broken into 2 blocks of 7 characters apiece. So for example, if you have a 10-character password, it'll be stored in 1 block of 7 and another block of 3. So a hacker or a cyber criminal, someone that has password cracking software, will try to solve those blocks separately. It'll first solve the 7-character password, and it might take that a few minutes to a few hours, depending on complexity. Once that's been solved, it'll work on the 3-character block, and it'll probably solve that in seconds. When a password is 15 characters or longer, the database is forced to store it as one much larger block. Now that password cracker has to solve for the whole thing at once. A 15-character password will take the software over 275 years to crack. So length matters more than anything else, but a long and complex password is even better. You may also want to consider using a passphrase to help you come up with a password that you can remember. And I'll show you some examples in a second. So here's 3 different ways you can make a good password. The first is complex only. And basically in this instance, you've used the sentence, I have a dog named Lily and a cat named Charlie. You've taken some of the words and replaced them with, or letters, I'm sorry, and replaced them with special characters. I would say that's just a complex password. And the next example, you have a long password that's 23 characters long. So you've got a combination of lowercase and uppercase, but I think most databases wouldn't accept this without any special characters or symbols. But it is a long password, and would still give you some pretty good solid security, but I still suggest long and complex, which is the third option here with the use of bottleneck airplane. So this has a combination of long and complex, and you can also use a sticky note with a small phrase to help you remember that long password. So in this instance, they've got B11AC to help them remember that 27 character password. And the reason for that is somebody could look at that and they probably wouldn't understand what you're trying to say there. So you could feel pretty secure in knowing that they won't remember or know your password. Then there's also something called two-factor authentication. To keep your account safe, two-factor authentication is a great tool. It adds another layer of security to the login process. It requires that you use something besides just your username and password to get into your account. You might think your username and password are enough. Unfortunately, data leaks happen often. In the news, we hear about a new data breach every week, if not more often. With each of these data breaches, there's a chance that usernames and passwords were released. So this is why we not only want to change our passwords often, but we also want to add as many protective measures as possible to protect our information. So some examples of two-factor authentication you may already be familiar with are a code being texted to you when you try to log into an account, or a code being emailed to you. Other forms may include facial or fingerprint scans. There are many apps that offer services or two-factor authentication services, especially ones that store sensitive information like your email, financial accounts, social media. Navigating to the menu to set up two-factor authentication will differ across services, but it can usually be found under the security settings. All right, so this concludes my presentation on online safety. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take those. And also here's my information if you'd ever like to reach out to me. And that's our website, secureflorida.org. Thank you guys for having me. And as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. If anybody does have any questions, you can just use the Q&A panel to submit them, and we'll respond to those individually. And if not, we'll have some time at the end of the third presentation for any general questions you may have. So for now, I'd like to introduce Robert Follis. Bob represents the Florida Attorney General's office, where he assists with the enforcement of Florida's unfair and deceptive trade practice laws. Bob has handled numerous cases involving business practices such as advertising, home solicitation, and financial practices, many of which affect senior citizens. He's formerly a felony attorney for the Hillsborough Public Defender's Office, and he currently serves as co-chair of the National Association of Attorney Generals Consumer Protection Working Group on Seniors. So he's very well into the weeds on fraud prevention and protection for seniors. And we're happy to have him with us today. So with that, I'd like to ask Bob to take over and share his screen and share his fraud prevention intelligence with us.
Well, good morning and hello, everybody. Jerry, I don't have a screen to share today because I've been asked to talk about what to do once or if someone becomes a victim. Okay. But first, let me say thank you for this wonderful opportunity. There is a lot of crime, a lot of scams out there. And when we used to be able to talk to our children about stranger danger of things out there, now, due to technology that Maurice really did a great job covering, the danger can come into your house, to your children, to your parents, to your finances. Because one of the biggest changes I starkly remember coming from a criminal background to a civil litigation background is it's only money. What's the big deal? No one really got hurt. But when you meet these really wonderful people who work their whole lives to save up a nest egg, to finally relax, enjoy their life, spend time with their friends, family, and grandchildren, with one call, one click of a mouse, they could lose everything. And once or if you lose all your money, that really can demolish someone's life, unfortunately. So I take this job seriously as far as getting the information out to consumers, and really appreciate the job this organization and other organizations do in getting the word out. Because as Maurice mentioned, once the money goes out, it's certainly a challenge to get it back. So we really try to educate people as much as we really can to have them pause before they hit the button or before they give out that information. Just wanted to cover a couple points before I get to go over about what happens if you believe you've been victimized. In the grandparent scam, covered that a lot. And the only thing I wanted to throw in on that is oftentimes the grandson has a broken nose or was injured because granddad or grandma is going to say, well, Johnny, you don't sound like you. Well, I was hurt, I was injured, and I have to call you. So that's going to be one thing. And oftentimes speed is one indication of a scam. They're never going to give you enough time to think about it, to call the family, call your son, call your daughter. It's going to be, I'm in jail right now. I need help right now. Your Social Security benefits are going to be frozen right now unless you give us this information. Unless it's a health issue and you need to have surgery, or your loved ones, you need to make a surgery right now, everything can wait 10 minutes. And it's hard not to fall into that trap of immediacy. This sale's going to end. I find my wife trying to buy something right now because the sale's going to end. And I try to tell her, honey, if we show up tomorrow with money, I'll get you the same price. I promise, or next year. There's no immediacy right now. And I even do this for a living, that if you don't slow down, I was almost victimized because I got an email from Apple confirming a purchase of $350 for something. And I'm like, my dang teenagers, who would have thought I'm going to cancel it? And I started clicking and I said, well, wait a minute. And as Marie said, I looked at the mail return address and there was a typo. And I'm like, my goodness, they almost got me too. Also, I want to let you know that while money is valuable, data is valuable too. There's nothing free in this world. When you're walking through a mall and you see something for a free dinner and you just have to put your name, address, and phone number, that's not free. You're volunteering yourself to become a lead. And once you become a lead, they can charge for that. If you attend one of these things, now you're more important lead, because not only will you come to this investment scenario, that organization may be able to sell your name to someone else, saying, hey, these people come in, and now we can sell them in person. I also hear a lot of complaints about phone calls. Why can't we stop these calls? Maurice hit on the technology where that's often challenging too. I would suggest don't pick up the phone ever until you know who you're calling, because unfortunately, computers can cold call thousands of people. If you pick up, now you're a qualified lead because your phone number, this person picks up the phone. I can resell your number to hundreds of other people to call you. Once you give me your credit card or Social Security number or some information over the phone, now all of a sudden you're a gold mine. You pick up the phone, I can get information from you. I'm going to give my number to my friend and say, I got $1,000 from Jerry. Why don't you offer to get his money back for $300? So now my buddy's going to call Jerry to say, hey, someone ripped you off, pal. For a couple hundred, I can get your money back. And it all goes downhill. So as Maurice was covering, please remember your data is privacy, should be private, and it is valuable. And you don't even think that much when you go to department stores or grocery stores and sign up for a savings club, and they want your name, address, phone number, date of birth. Do they really need that information to give you 10% off at the checkout line? They'd love to have it, but you also have the right to say, no, thank you, I'd rather not give it, or give a fake number as long as it's not a crime. I'm just saying, please be careful with your personal information. What can you do to prevent being a victim? Ask questions. The BBB is a fine organization to check the legitimacy of a business. But if you don't want to make that call, how about ask a friend? When you're out going to a restaurant, going to that shuffleboard match, say, hey, I found this great deal of ABC Corporation, Tom. Do you know anything about it? Ask around the neighborhood, because what's the rush of letting your money go out the door right now? If you don't know anyone, ask someone at your bank who you're going to hear from later. Ask someone you do business with to say, hey, I may do this. Do you know anything about these people, to educate yourself before you do it? Please don't be embarrassed, as Maurice said. Everyone's been victimized. And I can tell you, anyone who's watching this video, if you haven't gone over your typical bills with a fine tooth comb, I'll guarantee you've been overcharged on your bills. Because if your bill doubled from $100 to $200, you're going to call. That's going to catch your notice. If it's $110, well, no big deal. Maybe it's an extra fee. You're just going to pay it. Life goes on. But if you multiply that by 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people, suddenly money can add up that certain companies can get from you. Why? Because you haven't called the company and gone through every line item of the bill. I don't care how much it is. Ask, why are you charging me this? Do you have to? What's the purpose of it? You want to be the squeaky wheel with your bills, with anyone you deal with, because if you want to be result, Maurice mentioned size matters. I think noise matters too. Also, deal with the company too. Sometimes things are an honest mistake, a misunderstanding, and a lot of times people learn to go to the BBB, do your police, call the Attorney General's office. But a lot of times it's easier for a business to try to resolve something. So try to address the business, be calm, allow for the fact that maybe it's a misunderstanding, and try to think, well, what would you do to settle this case? You want your money, but you also want time. If it's going to take you 6 months to get $100 back, certainly to each their own, but see what you can do before you actually complain. If you feel you've been abused, defrauded, or whatever, please complain to the Attorney General's office, the BBB, and some other things that I'm going to talk about in a second. So you think you've been victimized. You're angry, you're upset. Tell people. Time is not on your side on this. The sooner we can hear about a situation, the better chance there is in going to a financial institution to try to catch where the money is going. Unfortunately, lots of times people are embarrassed. Older people don't want to tell their children. So the story begins 8 months ago. Here's something my dad did. That it's a complication that if you can say it sooner rather than later, it can help things. Understand that there's a lot of emotion in these situations. Without a doubt, perfectly understandable. And whoever you complain to will politely listen to your whole story. But if you take a step back, what's really relevant to the story? The name of the person or the business you did business with, documents showing contracts signed or copies of the payment instruments, your credit card bills with personal information blocked out on it, just so when you have your complaint ready, you can cut to the chase. On January 1st, we did this transaction on this credit card. Here it is. Here's a picture of what they promised. Maybe have a mailer, maybe have an advertisement, maybe have something to show what the issue is. Then maybe take a picture of what you got. So now the person you're talking to has a concise, relevant information, the date of the transaction, the amount, what you're complaining about, and perhaps who you talk to. Maybe take notes. I spoke to the assistant manager, Joe Smith. I spoke to him, blah, blah, blah. So now there is a concise packet for that person to try to do something with. Again, they'll listen to the whole story, but a lot of time is spent going through all the emotions to get to the relevant part of the information we need to send to our investigators to see if we can help here. What should you do? One, call the BBB. Most BBBs offer mediation services. You can call, they'll take your information, they'll reach out to the business, they'll try to resolve it on your behalf. I would suggest keeping an open mind to try to resolving it, because sometimes time is more important than money. That's each individual's decision. Be factual with your complaint, because I hear some businesses actually suing people who complained. So try to keep it, just the facts, to go back to Joe Friday on that, about what happened with that, and see what the BBB can do for you. I'm not familiar with them charging for that service. I don't believe they do where I'm from, but that may vary depending on what location you're dealing with. But the BBB is a great organization. If you believe there's outright fraud, they took the money and ran, call the local police department. They have local jurisdiction. Say you want to file a police report. Sometimes they can take it over the phone. Other times they have walk-in places. Bring your documentation. Keep the story as concise and as factual as you can, and put the report in. As long as you're being honest, there's probably no downside to it if the business is non-responsive to it. Jerry is going to have some materials available from my office to y'all about other places to contact in there, but we have a phone number you can call, 1-866-9-NO-SCAM. And you can phone in a complaint or go to our the Florida Attorney General's webpage and type in a complaint. We can refer that complaint out to more appropriate organizations if it's not what we do, or we can try to address it for you. But more importantly, it goes into our database where you can actually check with our office and say, hey, I'm looking to do business with XYZ Corporation. Do you have any complaints about that organization? That makes you a smarter consumer before you give out money in a situation like that. Because once the money's gone, it's a little bit more challenging, to say the least. General Moody also created a senior protection team in Florida. Best way to describe it, when you go into the hospital with one of your kids and that first person says, hey, what's wrong? And you say, oh, my child has a runny nose. You're going to be there for 8 hours because there are people with life-threatening injuries, broken bones. But if you go in there and there's a more serious situation, things can get expedited. The function of the senior protection team is to review the complaints that come in from seniors, to see the urgency or the nature of these complaints. That if it's criminal, it would be shot out to our criminal, it can be referred to our criminal people. If it's more time sensitive, it will be addressed appropriately. Not to say other complaints are ignored, but it's like a triage, if you will, by different people in our organization trained for that. So it is one way to try to help seniors in our neighborhood. And also we have a longstanding not-for-profit, Seniors versus Crime, in different areas of Florida, where a lot of times it's challenging for a senior to come in and speak to someone who looks like an 18-year-old kid to try to describe what happened. There's different emotions, maybe embarrassment, things like that. So therefore, years ago, we created volunteers who go in and staff different offices. So that way, when a senior goes in, they're speaking to someone close to their own generation and could understand things a little bit more better. They offer some mediation services. They will call the business and try to resolve things. And if not, that complaint would be referred to our office proper to try to address. I've met and spoken with many Seniors versus Crime people across the state. There are lawyers, retired judges, law enforcement people who've retired but are like looking for battering rams to go and get this business for what? And it's like, no, take the information, relax, thank you for your help. We can get this done. But that's just another resource available for people. So you're not really alone in this scenario, but you have to be cognizant of the resources that are out there. And if you see something, say something. You're not coming to a conclusion, You're just seeing what, you're seeing what you saw out there, and you're telling people what you saw, and it's scaring you, and you're leaving it at that. Feel free to contact me through the contact information that I believe Jerry's going to have. Scams are changing all over the place, and what I'd like to just leave with really 2 words: they're lying. You get that call that you're about to be arrested on the phone, they're lying. Your social security is going to be frozen, they're lying. It's really hard to get in front of every conceivable scam because they keep on changing, unfortunately. If you think every call is a lie, when you hang up, as Maurice was saying, go back and then call your financial institution when you're done and say, Regions Bank, Social Security is going to cut me off. Is that? No, that's not true. Or call the sheriff's department. Am I going to be arrested? And as long as they don't say, no, you're not going to be arrested, but where are you right now and what are you wearing? You may want to talk to an attorney if they're trying to find out where you are. But apart from that, I believe that they're going to say, no, you're not going to be arrested. My 95-year-old mother called me saying, Bob, I miss jury duty. They're going to arrest me. I said, Mom, I'm not going to charge you. I'll give you the friends and family rate. Get the video camera out, film them arresting a 95-year-old senior citizen for missing jury duty. We're all going to be set for life, Mom. It's not going to happen. But people get scared easily. We're in scary times. So just remember, you do have friends out there to get things done. If you've been victimized, don't panic. Gather the information, convey it, follow up, be the squeaky wheel, and hopefully someone can get you some oil. You can contact me through the information that Jerry is going to post or send out or otherwise make available. Good luck, because it's scary times we're in. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob. Excellent. The document that Bob mentioned that I'll be sending out, I will send out to everyone who's registered for this webinar today, and I will also post it on our website. So keep an eye on our amacfoundation.org website for a posting in the next day or so. That will be a good document, a good background document for people to have. So Bob, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're going to shift gears now to Brianne. Brianne Peppers is Information Security Officer for the Citizens First Bank here in the Villages. Her focus there is dedicated to fraud and information security. She works actively with her team members in keeping customers safe from scams and their information secure. She's passionate about training team members, and she's passionate also about teaching customers the ways that they can stay safe from the threats that they face in today's world. And as we've just heard, there are just an almost innumerable volume of threats coming at people these days. Brianne holds a Bachelor of Science degree in criminology with a minor in psychology, which is a very interesting pairing of degrees, of areas of focus, because criminologists, or criminals, I should say, are very schooled these days in psychology as well. And that's why they are so successful in the frauds that they perpetrate. So that's an interesting academic background, but she's a graduate of Florida State University, and she's also a certified banking security manager. So as in the case of Maurice and Robert, an excellent amount of background and technical know-how in this area of fraud prevention. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brianne, and it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here to share this information. Let me just get my screen up here. And can everybody see that?
Yep.
Awesome, great. So a little bit about myself. Okay, well, oh, there you go. I am Brianne Peppers. I'm an Information Security Officer. I did graduate from Florida State University with a Bachelor's of Science, and I minored in Criminal Behavior Psychology. I deal heavily and very actively with a lot of fraud that we're seeing throughout our communities. And unfortunately with COVID, I feel like that has truly skyrocketed because we are home and we are more present to answer our phones. So without further ado, my presentation is mirroring a lot of our informational videos that we actually have on our Facebook page now, so we can reach our communities and provide that information out there to our communities so they can be aware of these types of scams that we're seeing, because it is a really unfortunate circumstance for not just our customers, but anybody who faces these types of scams during these unfortunate times that we're seeing. So a little bit about the social engineering. Like Maurice stated earlier, it's the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. So they want your information, and they want that information to either sell or fraudulently open accounts in your name, or to even just swipe some money from you. The most successful methods we see throughout the communities are phishing, and smishing scams. Phishing is the email. Phishing is where they actively call you and impersonate law enforcement, loved ones, or whoever they can impersonate over the phone, and the scam text as well. What we're seeing on the rise are refund scams, the antivirus and anti-malware scams, lottery scams, fake check and work scams, and the mystery and secret shopper scams as well. Phishing, that's what we typically see as a very, very successful method of social engineering. This is where they're sending those emails that look like the legitimate companies in an attempt to steal your login credentials, or where they ask you to click on something to download that malicious software or program to your computer and harvest that information wherever they can, unfortunately. As Maurice presented earlier, the Amazon scams, I do want to touch on that. We have seen some scams where they're actively now incorporating phishing as well. They'll send you an email stating that you've purchased something through Amazon. If it wasn't you, click on the button to get a refund, and they actually populate a telephone number that you call, and it directs you to a scammer. And then from there, that scammer will obtain your credit card or debit card information so they can give you that supposed refund from the item that you ordered. So we have seen a new twist on that as well. So now they're incorporating that phishing piece as well. Financial institutions still remain very, very big. With the suspicious activity on your account, click on this link and log in and provide your credentials. And that's how they actually get your online banking credentials that way. Credit card companies we're still seeing pretty big, and recently antivirus and anti-malware. We have seen a rise in those as well through the phishing scams. And just some general ways to stay safe that we teach our community. You know, think on things before you click. You know, if you weren't expecting it or you're not familiar with it, it's best to just not click anything within the email, whether that's a link or an attachment. Verify the website security. They typically lead you to a phishing domain that's set up to harvest that information from you. So you just want to actually just actively go to the correct website instead of clicking through the link to get to that website. Check online accounts regularly for any suspicious activity. And keep your browsers up to date. That's also important. Use firewalls if you can, or if you have that type of knowledge, and just be wary of pop-ups, and never give out your personal information if you're unsure. And you just want to make sure you're using antivirus software, but from reputable companies that you've done the research on and you feel comfortable having that on your computer. Excuse me. Phishing. This is where the scammers will make the phone calls or leave voice messages impersonating those reputable companies, government agencies, financial institutions, and sometimes even loved ones, like we've discussed earlier through the grandparent scams. These are typically refund scams is what we're seeing a lot of. The tech support scams where they call and they impersonate Microsoft or an antivirus company. The IRS and Social Security scams are still very, very big here as well, where these agencies typically don't call you, but the IRS and Social Security scams, those calls do come through, and we do see some people being scammed from that as well. The grandchild grandparent scam, those are very, very, very popular right now, unfortunately. And they are very, very scary situations, especially during these times. So like Bob said, you just want to take that time to slow down and verify. And as Marie said, call the parents, even if they tell you not to. You just want to verify that all that information is accurate before you even start thinking of acting on anything. And typical financial institutions where they're impersonating your bank or your credit card, trying to gain that access to your accounts and that information. And just tagging along with gift card scams. This is typically as they've scared you into doing something they want, they're going to start mentioning, okay, you need to purchase gift cards. And we do see a lot of the gift card scams, very, very prominent throughout communities where they're being scammed. Ooh, excuse me. Ways to protect yourself. You know, you want to stay vigilant on the phone and pay attention during phone calls because they're using these phone calls and tactics to catch you off guard, to play on your emotions and get that information from you. You want to verify the identity of those who are asking for personal information for you before releasing any information. And I also want to tag on to that as well. In your mind, you should think, do I want to give this personal information out to this person? Should be your first question as well. You don't ever want to give out any information or divulge any information that is not public or applicable to the call. Be cautious when you're giving out information. If you do receive a phone call, it's typically best to call that agency directly yourself versus supplying that information. If you receive a phone call from your bank institution for suspicious activity or they're going to close your debit card, it's easier to just hang up the phone, call that number on the back of your card, and know that you're going to speak to a legitimate person who can help you and they can verify the legitimacy of that previous phone call. Like stated earlier, be suspicious of unrecognized phone numbers. They're trying to actively spoof numbers to make it look like it's someone or an agency that you may know already offhand. They really are perpetrating a lot of fraud departments for banks. So be very, very wary when you're picking up phone numbers that you don't recognize. My general rule of thumb for me personally is if it's that important, they'll leave me a voicemail. And once I listen to the voicemail, I can determine, okay, is this legitimate or is this a fake phone call? The smishing text, this is where they actively text you. They're going to send you text updates impersonating items, package updates. It could be financial institutions where you have that suspicious activity, just urgent warnings, fake surveys, lottery scams. You know, you don't want to click on those links at all, and you don't want to respond either. You just want to delete that from your phone instead of supplying them any type of information. Like I stated, don't click on those links. Is it a person you know? If it's not, don't build that rapport with the scammer. Don't send anything back. If they're asking for a quick reply, it's typically going to be a smishing scam. And just do your research before replying to anything. Typically, the rule of thumb is if you don't know it, it's most likely an active scammer. Just a little bit more information about that. The lottery scams, we are seeing those through SMS texting. If it's too good to be true, it's typically not going to be a legitimate text or lottery or any type of information like that. So I don't necessarily see someone texting you that you're going to win $1 million through a lottery scam. So you just want to be wary of those types of scams that we're seeing. And then just some other common scams that were touched on as well, the fake check scams, when you're receiving those in the mail and you contact that person and they're saying, hey, deposit this and to keep a little bit of money for yourself. Those are scams. They're not legitimate. The free trial scams where you sign up for something and then they keep charging your debit card or they you call back and say, oh, I need this, they need this, they need this. So you want to be wary of the free trial scams as well. Romance scams are huge, like Marie stated. And when you're actively on those accounts and you are meeting people, we have noticed that some of those companies, they actually tell you that we believe this is a fake profile. You really should pay attention to those red flags that Maurice hit on. And when they send you information such as that, you should be very, very wary, because that indicates a huge, huge problem there. And other common scams, again, the lottery scams. I feel like those have really picked up a lot in the past for us recently here. So those are also to be wary of. We actually have a Facebook page that's now available, ways to protect yourself. Stay up to date on the latest scams. You can visit our website for that. And we also have a fraud prevention page that you can follow along. And as we update and see the changes through the threat landscape, we like to actively update that as well. So use those resources that are available to you. I personally feel that banks are being more and more informed of the different scams and ways to protect customers and how to assist them. So utilize your financial institutions as a resource. They're great. They have information that can help assist you as well. And they can point you in the right direction when you need them the most. And that was all for me.
Hey, Brianne, thank you very much. Thank all of our presenters today. This has been a wealth of information that I think is extremely valuable to everybody, not just seniors, but everybody. I do have one question though, Maurice, I would direct this to you from a cybersecurity perspective. What's your view on the importance of virtual private networks, VPNs, particularly in a home network environment?
Sure. So for those that don't know, a virtual private network basically is a type of tool you can utilize so that people cannot see what you're doing on the internet, basically. Or when you transmit information over the internet, it's basically a method you can utilize or a tool you can utilize to basically operate safely. A lot of people working remotely, I would definitely suggest utilizing one. If you're connecting to public Wi-Fi for some reason, which I don't ever recommend, connecting to public Wi-Fi, not a good idea. And if you do connect to public Wi-Fi, don't send any sensitive information or log into anything. If you're just searching for things, browsing for information, just do that. But I would say, yes, it doesn't hurt to use a VPN, whether you're at home or you're at Starbucks working. I would say that's a good tool to utilize.
Good, thank you. I raised the question because I'm seeing a lot of press these days about the importance of adding a VPN to your arsenal. So I just thought I'd get your viewpoint on it.
Yeah, so basically allows you to go on the internet privately. So you can conduct yourself and you can feel a little safer knowing that somebody can't just get into your network and see what you're doing.
I think it seems to be a good tool for cybersecurity issues, but all the stuff we talked about this morning in terms of not answering phone calls and not giving information on the phone, they all apply too. So it's all a big pile, I guess, of valuable information that we've received today, and we really appreciate it. I think this has been a valuable exchange from Maurice and Bob and Brianne as well. So
I'm sorry, Jerry, I have one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for the VPN, going back to the VPN question, please don't use a free one. You're going to have to pay for it, and there's some reasonable prices out there. Probably say around $50 a year.
Yeah, they are not that expensive. I think that the word on the street is the free ones are worth the price. So.
Correct.
Okay, well, with that, if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact any of the presenters. When we post the video, you'll see again their contact information. I will include contact information in the guide that Bob mentioned when I send it out in an email to the registrants. And it will also be posted ultimately on the foundation website, as will the video of this recording. We'll have it edited and it will probably appear on the website within the next, I would say, well, probably early next week, so we can get it edited and compacted for the website. I would also point out that the foundation website, amacfoundation.org, has a blog page. Every Monday morning, we publish a blog article of importance to seniors. And this year, we published about a dozen articles dedicated to elder fraud and how to prevent that. AMAC and the AMAC Foundation are entering into a communication agreement with Travelers Insurance. Sorry, the name just escaped me there for a second. Travelers Insurance, which is an AMAC partner, to generate more information about elder fraud and things that you can do. And I think that one of the big things that people need to know, and Bob, you may want to comment on this from your perspective of if you are victimized or if you feel you are victimized, what's the first thing you should do? Who should you contact? And you know, how do you go about making sure that someone is aware that you've been victimized? I think you're muted, Bob. There you
Sorry
go.
about it. I was just getting a pop-up message. I think I won a lottery, so I may be putting in my resignation today. So,
You gotta act quick though.
yes, I know, really. Isn't that the truth? I would think your financial institution may be the best place to first report what you believe a theft or a scam may be. Also, please keep in mind any transactions you do with a credit card, which I highly recommend, you can use the chargeback function on that one as well. So especially any internet transactions, I believe one should consider using credit cards as opposed to debit cards. While both financial institutions, you know, you can get to the end result on that. If you use your debit card, your cash is out the door and you're at the mercy of the financial institution trying to get it back or doing something for you. But a credit card is a third party where you can contest the charge. And that way the credit card would be the institution giving you your money back, and it would be their problem to go after the scammer. So even before you get to law enforcement, you know, or our agency, the BBB or what have you, your bank, your credit cards, and then tell some of your family members just so everyone's on the same page. And then, you know, you can get into identity theft. That's a whole new bailiwick for a different time. But start at the basics. What asset did you lose? Where did you have that asset? And tell those people first.
Okay, good, good advice. Also, I mentioned the foundation website and our Monday morning blog page. The page is actually the news page. So if you go to the website, amacfoundation.org, and click on the news page, you'll see the blog articles. And if you thread back through the history articles there, you'll see quite a few on elder fraud. So AMAC actually is taking a more aggressive initiative in disseminating the kind of information we covered this morning, just to be sure people are aware. Awareness to me is the key to mitigating the problem. You know, following up on fraud situations is something else altogether. It's much more complex. If you can mitigate it, avoid it up front. And that's the reason for doing these kind of seminars, just to make sure people are aware of what the triggers are, you know, what the hints are that this is not legitimate, and they can save themselves a lot of problems that way. So again, on behalf of the AMAC Foundation and its constituency, I want to thank Maurice, Bob, and Brianne for a tremendous presentation of information that's so valuable to people. And I can just say nothing more than thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Any final words before we close out the webinar?
Jerry, I just wanted to say thank you for having us.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
And just to get with your financial institutions and alert than to these types of scams. It really will, I feel, save you in the long run. I just wanted to add that. I feel sometimes customers aren't aware of the resources their institutions can provide them. So it's great to stay up to date and alert them to any type of scams that may have fallen into their laps and they've been an unfortunate victim to.
Absolutely. And as Bob mentioned, the sooner the better. The more time that passes, the harder it is to track things down, especially if you want to try to recover money that's been stolen. The longer it takes to report it, the more difficult it's going to be. So don't be concerned about contacting your bank or your credit card carrier. I found the credit card carriers to be very responsive with their fraud departments.
Yes, and I feel on top of that, it's not, sometimes those scams, they do evolve, and it's, if you've given out more sensitive information, it just becomes a lot bigger. And by that time, it is a lot harder to work through that, especially as Bob stated, if it's identity theft. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Okay.
And Jerry, I'll post your cell phone. So if anyone has any questions 24/7, they can contact you directly, I believe.
Oh, sure. No problem. No problem. And I'll change it right away. No, thank you. Thank you all. This has been great. We really appreciate it. And I know that everyone that has been on the webinar today and everyone that watches the video will benefit tremendously from the information you've shared. So with that, I'll say goodbye and I will end the webinar, and thank you all. I hope we meet again soon.
Stay safe, everyone.